The odds makers have the Packers behind some teams in the NFC. They were just straight up better than last year. That makes Green Bay the sleeper in the NFC in 2025.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I was looking at the FanDuel odds in the NFC the other day, and I saw that the Eagles are rightfully the favorites, plus 350. They're the defending champions. They had the best team, clearly the best team last year. Right behind them are the Lions at 5-1. And our pal Kay Adams pointed out, there's a big drop between those two teams and everyone else, which is a little weird because the Rams almost beat the Eagles in Philadelphia in a snowstorm. And the Lions didn't even win a playoff game and lost their two very good coordinators and just had one of their best players retire. 5-1 when the next closest team after that is 9-1. I don't quite understand that outside of that the Lions, I guess, have become a bit of a public team, which is wild to say, but I think is true. After that, it's LA at 9-1. The Rams. And at least this one, I kind of understand. But Matthew Stafford was almost not on this team not that long ago. I don't know if you remember that. In February, Sean McVay was going on podcasts and openly talking about, well, we'll see what happens. You know, if it makes sense to have him back, we will. Not, he's our guy, no matter what, ride or die. Les Snead's going to do what he's going to do, but like, we want this guy back, no doubt. That's not what happened. And that Rams defense was bad. I know they beat the Vikings in a very weird set of circumstances, but that defense is bad. Or at least it was bad last year. And I don't know that I have a lot of reasons to believe it's going to be much better. Like Jared Verse was on that team last year. Brain Fisk was on that team last year. Maybe they'll get better, but it seems unlikely that they'll be significantly better. This is something we talked about there in chats 2 years ago. If you're really good as a rookie, don't expect a big year two jump. That's just not normally how it works. You may get a similar level of play. You may get an incremental step forward. You may get an incremental step back. But you're not going to get, like Jared Verse is not going to go from very good as a rookie to all pro in all likelihood. It's not unheard of. It's happened. Statistically speaking, it's just not likely. And then the Commanders, plus 950, right next to the Rams. Now, I get it. They won 12 games last year. They went to the NFC Championship game last year. They won 2 playoff games last year. But this feels like very much a recency bias thing because, again, that defense was bad. And I don't know that it was made significantly better. Who is going to rush the passer in Washington? Tell me who. Can you name any of the players who start on that front? Can you name any of them? Because some of them that have been there for a long time don't play there anymore. And so you're like, okay, well, what does this look like without Montez Sweat has been gone? Jonathan Allen is now gone. Dante Fowler, who was very good for them last year, is now gone. They paid real money for Javon Kinlaw. They brought in Dietrich Wise. Dorrance Armstrong is going to start at one side, and then Deron Payne and Johnny Newton are the holdovers. That's their front. That's brutal. And then at corner, they got really good play out of Mikey Sanderstill last year. But they're expecting Marshawn Lattimore to be healthy for them, which is a bad idea because Marshawn Lattimore has not been healthy for years. Sure, they drafted Trey Amos. Most rookies are bad. And that division is going to be better this year than it was last year. So I just don't understand. Now, look, is it a huge gap? The Packers are 10-1. The Commanders are plus 950. The Rams are 9-1. So there is that clump. And the Packers were, for stretches of the offseason, actually shorter odds than the Rams. The Rams have been bet down. I think the Rams were 11 or 12-1 to win the conference before. This Packers team, especially as we get closer to the season, because they didn't do anything flashy. Now, they did draft a receiver in the first round, but it wasn't Tedero McMillan. They are being overlooked. And if you're a Packers fan, I'm sure for a lot of you, you're going, hell yeah. That's exactly where I want to be. I want to be overlooked. I don't want to be the favorite because the Packers have been the favorites in the past and it hasn't worked out. And in fact, when the last time they won the Super Bowl, they were certainly not the favorites and they were the 6th seed back when there were only 6 playoff seeds. They very much in 2023 had a chance to go to the Super Bowl as the 7th seed. And had the seeding broke a little different last year, they might have had that chance to at least get to the NFC Championship game. Now, health and a lot of factors worked against them there. But this team had a better offense. So everyone ahead of them, the Eagles, the Lions, the Rams, the Commanders. By DVOA, the Packers had a better offense than all but the Lions. Better than the Eagles, better than the Rams, with Matthew Stafford and the genius Sean McVay. Then Rookie of the Year and everyone's new favorite quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And they had a better defense by far over Washington and LA than all those teams but Detroit and Philadelphia. Right now, today, if you were going to make odds, Green Bay should be 3rd in the pecking order. But you have to build in the public sentiment here. I'm fine with the Eagles and the Lions in the top 2. After that, Green Bay is the next most likely team to win the conference. And as I said yesterday, the odds do not reflect to me the quality in the gap of talent. Like the difference between 3-1, plus 350 and 9-1 is big. I don't think the gap between the Packers and then the Eagles and the Lions is that big. And I think we saw that in the playoffs. An extremely banged up Packers team gave that Philly team everything they could handle. Throwing the ball to Malik Heath and Bo Melton in the second half. No Elton Jenkins. No Jair Alexander. And there's real reasons to expect this defense to take a material step forward, especially if you can get Jair Alexander back. Another reason would be Kenny Clark. He's healthy. And he's talked about now what happened last year. We will talk about what he talked about next on Locked On Packers. The NBA Finals are here, and every night will deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to win and win big. Plus, an NBA Finals game, a same-game parlay, throw a couple of these player props together, juice those odds and really make some money. I mean, that is a fun night, especially these games are like on weird random nights too sometimes. So you're like, okay, what am I going to do on a Tuesday night? Hey, how about this? Plus $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Like, that seems pretty cool too. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Kenny Clark spoke about how he's doing now at OTAs. And he mentioned that he had surgery in January. And I've talked over the course of the offseason about that injury. And I had heard that, look, that foot really was a bigger problem than we understood. It is why, as we got closer to the draft, I had come to the conclusion that he is your nose tackle and they're not going to draft one of those nose tackle types. They didn't draft a big body type really at all until the very, 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 very end. 6th round pick, undrafted free agents. I still think both those Georgia tackles have a chance to make this team. That's a different thing. And by the way, we're going to learn nothing in OTAs about offensive or defensive line, period, full stop. In terms of the quality of the players, we may learn about what the Packers think of them and where their development is. For example, Matt LaFleur was praising Lucas Van Ness and his development, talking about maybe playing him inside a little bit as a pass rusher. We saw that at OTAs yesterday. So that's part of all of this. But Kenny Clark had what I think is pretty obviously his worst season as a pro. A year after having his best season as a pro in terms of sack totals. He said he hurt his foot in the Eagles game in week 1. An injury that eventually ended in him having to have surgery. And he said, when asked how much it affected him, he said, a lot. These guys, especially linemen, Kenny Clark, they are tough dudes. They do not want to admit that an injury affected their play. If they are, 2 things. One is they probably heard the chatter about how they played. But 2, they must have been really hurt to have to admit it. Because if it was a little thing, like, people on the team know. The trainers know. The coaches know what the injury was and how serious it was. If it is less serious than he makes it seem, he knows how that makes him look internally. So if we can chalk up what happened last year to that injury, and now he's healthy. Now, of course, he gets hurt again and it's all out the window. But if you think you can count on getting an improved version of Kenny Clark, that's a big damn deal for this team, because he, if he's healthy, is a really, really, really good football player. And maybe it is the kind of thing where you're like, look, we want to play Lucas Van Ness more on pass rush downs to save Kenny Clark because the team needs him in the playoffs. I can understand why they would want to do that. I can understand why they would be having those conversations, looking around the room going, hey, what are the ways that we can save Kenny Clark's body so that when we need him in January, we can get the best out of him? Maybe play Lucas Van Ness a little bit more. Remember, this is, and I got a DM about this. I don't think right now, right this minute, I understand the built-in skepticism, but I don't think worrying about Lucas Van Ness playing in the interior is an indictment on his play on the outside. I don't think we should take that leap yet. There is a time and a place to make that jump. We're not there yet. Thinking about it, going, this is interesting. Yes, because generally speaking, when players move positions like that, especially after 2 seasons of underwhelming play, you start to wonder, okay, does this guy just not have a position? And is it because he's just not to the standard? But if you add Kenny Clark back to this defense, And then you add Jair Alexander back to this defense. Let's say you get a little bit of improvement internally. Rashawn Gary gets a little bit more comfortable. Xavier McKinney gets a little bit more comfortable. Evan Williams gets a little bit more comfortable. Edgerrin Cooper gets a little bit more comfortable. I said the other day that this defense can be one of the best in the league. Not just top 10, like top 3. That kind of defense, like the Philadelphia Eagles last year kind of level of defense where they're number 1 in DVOA. Yes, they have that kind of ability with a healthy Kenny Clark, with the return of Jair Alexander. They have that ability. Last thing I want to say about this. When you play these international games and the NFL seems resolute in continuing to do this, and frankly, I think it can be fun. And I don't know why they're stopping where they're stopping with Europe. Like, go to Japan. There are other places other than, and expanding to South America was a cool thing, but before it had just been Europe, basically. It had been London, and then it was Germany or Austria. I forget where the first one was, and that was kind of it. Remember, we actually had NFL Europe for a while, and so South America is a cool thing. Mexico City a couple years ago, although that seemed like that did not go great. But when you have these games, and I'll even include the NFL, because we know that Soldier Field, that turf is terrible. There are high school teams right now practicing on better fields than Soldier Field is on game day. And Pittsburgh, notoriously bad surface. The league, if they cared even an iota about player safety, would say we can't have these international, especially these showcase standalone international games. We cannot have them on surfaces that are just not to the standard. And I had people push back when I mentioned this on social media, like, hey, I watch games on that, or matches on that field all the time, and that field's great. Okay, maybe for soccer. But like soccer, they water the field before the game. It's a different thing. You don't want that in the NFL if you can avoid it. So you need to make sure. And I know we got the NFL did their investigation, and the two teams decided, both sides and all that. This is not just sour grapes because Kenny Clark got hurt. This is something that I have been ragging on, not like forget the international part of it, because of Heinz Field and Soldier Field, that the NFL has been unwilling to step into these moments and say, this is not good enough, fix this. You have to hold your team to a higher standard. Like that, Roger Goodell should be going to these owners. Now that would, in this case, we know what's going on with Bears ownership and has been for a long time. They don't care about that stuff. I don't know what they care about. I think they just maybe getting the checks. But the NFL has to be more willing to step in and say, this is not acceptable, and work with these facilities, work with the places and say, look, this is a beautiful, beautiful stadium. The field has to be right. And we're going to work with you to make it right, because players are going to get hurt. That's the reality. And if it rains or it snows or, there are these weather events, that's different than the field is just not up to snuff. Because that has been the case. And that has been the case in Chicago. Like, oh, sorry, Dierks Bentley played here on Friday night, so the field sucks on Sunday. What are we talking about? Like, that is a thing that happens. Someone will come through Chicago, they will play a concert on a Friday, there'll be a football game on a Sunday. In Pittsburgh, they'll play a college football game on a Saturday and then turn around and play Sunday, same sod. Or maybe worse, new sod. It's a joke. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You have to be able to figure this out. And the NFL, unfortunately, just doesn't care. Or they don't care enough. And again, this is not about one injury and overreacting to that. No, this has been a problem for a long time. And if you're going to continue to go to these international markets, which I am not philosophically opposed to, I know some people are. I'm not. I think it's fun, especially when it's other teams. It's more annoying for the Packers. And me personally, if I have to get up extra early to watch these games, although let's be honest, I have 2 kids under 6, so I'm up, but I'm not working, at least not at this job, certainly working at being a parent. The NFL has to care more than it does. Kenny Clark could get hurt at Lambeau Field. Anyone could. But that field is a state-of-the-art field. What they're able to do in December, January in Green Bay is remarkable. And the Vikings fans can complain all they want. Oh, the team slipped. No, the Packers don't. You do. And once you know the right cleats, you don't. So that's better than a rock hard field or the super slick field that no one knows how to play in because there's no cleat for it. No. The NFL has to make sure, especially these international games, that the field is to the standard. But while we're at it, let's make sure places like Chicago, like Pittsburgh, they're to the standard too. All right. We talked a lot already about the potential musical chairs along the offensive line. Matt LaFleur gave us a hint at least one spot here that I think is very important as we move forward. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Matt LaFleur echoed the comments that Brian Gutekunst gave us earlier this offseason about Zach Tom finding a home at right tackle. And we have already dug into all of the different ways that the Packers could put together this offensive line this year and all the ways they could potentially put together their offensive line in the future. Zach Tom moves to left tackle. Zach Tom moves to center. Anthony Belton, optionality, left tackle, right guard. Jordan Morgan, left tackle, right guard. All of these different ways that this puzzle could be put together. But Matt LaFleur said, not just that Zach Tom has found a home, but that the plan is for him to play right tackle. Now, maybe he just meant this year. But it seems like what they're telling us is they think Zach Tom is their right tackle. He's going to be their right tackle moving forward. The plan is Zach Tom is their right tackle. Okay. That's interesting, right? Because then where does Anthony Belton play? Because so far, the answer is tackle. And Jordan Morgan, yes, he's been working in with the ones even at left tackle. We'll see how Rasheed Walker reacts to that. Remember, this is someone who was a 7th round pick in part because there were some attitude and maturity questions about him coming out of college. Now, I don't want it to seem like we're going to hold everyone to the standard of who they were as a 22-year-old coming out of college, because we all grow and change and evolve. You're a very different person at 25 than you were at 22, especially in terms of maturity, attitude, all those things. You tend to grow up pretty fast in those moments. It's kind of like when you're a little kid and you have your growth spurt. Well, there's a maturation growth spurt that happens post-college, or that can happen. Some people, they never experience that. They're stuck in that post-adolescence forever. But it seems like Jordan Morgan, if he doesn't win that left tackle job, is going to be simultaneously competing to play right guard with Sean Rhyan. And if it is the case that Zach Tom is the right tackle of the future, and if it is the case that Jordan Morgan is going to be the left tackle of the future, where does that leave the rest of the offensive line? Anthony Belton, is he going to take a snap at guard? He was someone who, we had Ross Uglum on this show in the pre-draft. Again, Ross all over it. I think Ross even, I'd have to go back and check the tape, but I think Ross predicted that Anthony Belton would be one of those guys, or just mentioned that he thinks that Anthony Belton is a Packers guard all day. Well, He's playing tackle so far. The way that this doesn't really, like Zach Tom playing right tackle fits some things into place, but not as much as you might think. And that's why I thought this was funny, because I'm like, okay, well, that's a nice little answer from Matt LaFleur. No, it's really not. Because if Jordan Morgan wins the left tackle job, now you may have to move Anthony Belton to right guard and let Sean Rhyan walk. And then what are you doing with Elton Jenkins and the money there? Are you extending him? That question, I think we're going to get some sort of answer to in the next couple months, because presumably by the time that we open training camp, there will be some sort of resolution there, or at least by the time we open the season, there'll be some sort of resolution there. I guess we'll see. This could be contentious throughout the season. It's also possible that Jordan Morgan wins the right guard job, let's say, doesn't win the left tackle job, but wins the right guard job. Or it could also be the case that he just looks so much more comfortable at right guard. This would be my suggestion that this is the most likely scenario. He looks more comfortable at right guard. He wins that job. Anthony Belton is your swing tackle. And then in a year, Anthony Belton is your left tackle. That works. That is the simplest explanation. That is the Occam's razor outcome here. Jordan Morgan wins the right guard job. Anthony Belton slides in for Rasheed Walker. And then it gets a little interesting. You could actually, depending on, if Elton Jenkins is an all-pro or something close to it, you just have to figure that out and move him forward. But Sean Rhyan, while Elton Jenkins is out, Elton Jenkins being out is a blessing in a way for Sean Rhyan, because he's taking some center reps. And that allows him to add not just positional flexibility, but potential future value, because the Packers could say, hey, look, I know you were a backup last year. You really only have one season as a starter. Let's give you the Lucas Patrick contract with inflation, and you can compete to start at center for us. Now, maybe he would say, well, look, I don't want to do that. There's other opportunities. I'm going to get more money somewhere else to be an actual starter. We're seeing the money that guards costs. But if he's a center, and that's a position he's never really played, is it the same? Now, other teams might just say, well, he was a guard last, so we can just play him a guard. It's fine. That's certainly true too. The Packers have been willing to just wing it at center. Corey Linsley, day 3 pick. Cool. Josh Myers, yes, a day 2 pick, but still a rookie, day 1 starter. Cool. They're willing to do that. I'll never get over that not being Creed Humphrey, but that's a different thing. And maybe that's the route that they take, but that would then open up the door. If Jordan Morgan wins the right guard job this year, I think it opens up the door in a weird way for Sean Rhyan to come back. Because then in 4 years, Sean Rhyan has started one season, wasn't even the no doubt starter to open the year. It took Jordan Morgan getting hurt for him to put a stranglehold on that job. Now, he was outplaying Jordan Morgan, but it's the first month of the season. Jordan Morgan was hurt. The Packers wanted to get Morgan on the field, but then to bring him back, let him compete at center. Maybe you draft somebody and you've got a great backup plan. I think that's the best outcome for the Packers. But what happens if Jordan Morgan loses out at left tackle and at right guard? What do you do then? Do you feel like you have to keep Sean Rhyan? Then I think you probably have to keep Elton Jenkins. It gets complicated. It always gets complicated if your first round pick just can't play. I don't think we're headed down that path. I think Jordan Morgan, at the very least, is going to be a capable starter at guard, if not a really good one. I think he has the potential to be a very good one. I'm more dubious about that at tackle, but we'll see. We'll see. And I like, keep an eye on all of that. What is being reported, what is being said. Of course, we will be doing that here, but if you're someone that likes to scroll on your social media to see your Twitter lists, your Blue Sky lists, oh, who's doing that? Oh, that's interesting. Someone's taking a first team snap there. Don't over-index that stuff. But that is going to be something I'm watching throughout this whole process, of course. And unfortunately, Matt LaFleur saying Zach Tom is probably our right tackle for the future doesn't change that much about how many question marks this team has. It does, in absolute terms, it's one less question, but there's still plenty of them out there. We still don't know. We're still not that much closer to a 2026 starting lineup for the Packers. We're not even that much closer to a 2025 starting lineup for the Green Bay Packers. So plenty more to talk to here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on the social medias. Follow the podcast on the social medias plus TikTok. I'm just not on TikTok. I think that was a weird way to say that. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts and look at the YouTube page. We're here. You can watch us. That is always, I guess, an option for some people. Some people love to watch the podcast in the background. I don't know, just listen to it then. But that's just me. Like, look, don't let me yuck your yum. However you want to consume the podcast, please consume the podcast over on our YouTube page. You subscribe to us there so you can stay locked on Packers.